So this is what would happen if Blackjack became a villain. Actually, scratch that. I don't think any Precure team could handle this guy. We open this week with our heroines having ended their day at school. Hinata, of course, wanted to invite her friends to hang out, but Nodoka had a previous engagement. Specifically, she said that she was going to meet with someone very important to her, which Hinata, of course, assumed was a boyfriend.
Oi! Nodoka-chan!
Precure, the only kid show franchise that would imply the P word that I can't say on YouTube. No, obviously, going by the episode's title, he was her physician while she had been infected with the Byogen virus, Dr. Hachisuka. He claimed that he had some vacation time that he wanted to use up, so he stopped by to see his former patient in the town with the fancy hot springs. But yeah, that aside, he was there for perfectly wholesome reasons. Okay, you're not helping your case here, dude. Regardless, he was happy to see how many friends Nodoka had made since leaving his hospital, though a part of him did seem to be a little melancholy. Meanwhile, in the Byogen Kingdom, the king was looking surprisingly more intimidating than usual. I mean, I never actually found the big face to be all that scary, but when he's this close up and oh boy, yeah, understandably, even Darzan was a little shaken up when his boss ordered him to go through the Mega Part upgrade. Though, as I said last week, I was expecting him to put up a little more resistance to the process since even now, Darzan clearly knew it was likely a double-edged sword. It almost feels like there was supposed to be 1 or 2 more episodes between last week and this, which, considering current real-life circumstances, yeah, that might have very well been the case, so I understand. Though, at the very least, he was able to say he was doing it more for himself than this blowhard. Also, awesome tracking shot here. That night, the Hanadera family, plus 2, were having dinner at the Soizumi Inn. Once again, Dr. Hachisuka was able to admire how much healthier his former patient had become, to the point he had to come out and confess a little lie he had made. As it turned out, he had already cashed in all of his vacation days as he had quit working at the hospital. Yep, as it turned out, he had lost all of his confidence in his abilities as a doctor after failing to even identify the source of Nodoka's ailments, which the patient herself had recently learned the truth behind, but couldn't say anything. This kind of ties back to something I brought up back in the episode 29 review about Nodoka's hospital bills. Now, while I wouldn't expect this show to really bring this up, or even think they need to bring it up, because really, who likes talking about health insurance, I do think it kind of acts as an important underlying plot point here. As someone who is planning on becoming an accountant at a doctor's office, I can tell you, extended hospital stays, yeah, they aren't cheap. And while this certainly isn't going to be the case for every doctor, I can't imagine feeling that good to accept that amount of money and give practically nothing back in return. And judging by a later flashback, it looks like Nodoka had been going there up until like the very beginning of the series, which, yeah, that just stings even more. Wanting to tell the truth, Nodoka admirably decided to ask her partner first, considering this was also her battle and everything. Said battle partner had apparently eaten twice her weight in food, but as soon as Nodoka arrived, turned back to normal. Well, wait, where did her tummy go? Actually, don't answer that question. I also just watched Ojamajo Doremi episode 18, so yeah, I know what the rabbits do. Anyway, Rablin told her that they couldn't reveal the existence of the Byogens without Teatinu's permission. Later, the doc was able to assure her that he wasn't going to be jobless for long, as he had actually transferred to a research facility abroad. The reason for that was because he truly did regret how much he couldn't help his patient. Though, in spite of it all, she still did write a very kind letter to him after finally leaving the hospital, telling him how much he had at least morally gotten her through some of the toughest of times. And yet, in the saddest of ironies, words of kindness can hurt the most of all. Still, that also did give him the motivation to try and help people through some different methods like research. As someone who has a sister and brother-in-law who both practice medicine, I can tell you how much they relate with this guy in the current times. Thus, even though he had lost confidence in himself as a doctor, Nodoka's kind words had inspired him to continue to move forward towards some new goals. And even though she was still sad he had quit being a doctor, Nodoka was at least left happy with the knowledge that she was able to at least leave some sort of positive impression on the guy. I'll admit, while I did find this to be a good scene, part of me does kind of wish they could have stretched this talk and drama out just a little more. But then we would run the risk of turning this into a melodrama, so yeah, I'll let it pass. The next day, Dr. Hachisuka bid farewell to Nodoka and her family. However, yeah, now is a good time as any for a Monster of the Week fight, in spite of Darizen's reservations. Of course, he produced Dr. Giga Byoken. Surprised it took until the 30s before we got something like this. The Precure engaged it, and also met the new Darizen, which, yeah, I like this design. It's fittingly a lot more subtle and laid back than his cohorts. I especially like his tattoo that looks like a rose because, get it, rose thorns, and it connects back to Nodoka and all that, you get it. Anyway, thankfully, the power scaling was a little more on point this week with the Precure actually struggling against this enemy. Then again, maybe Gwaiwaru was just weak in spite of the muscles. Speaking of which, a nice little bit of continuity here with Shiu and Asumi performing another combination attack, though it didn't have much effect on Dr. Gigas' scalpels and... Doc, is that sanitary? Eventually, 3/4 of the team were taken out, which yes, included Asumi, again thank you for the power scaling. But I think someone's inner Hibiki started to take over, and Nodoka actually managed to fistfight the monster to a standstill. And surprisingly, this drew an actual emotion of Darizen, specifically anger. This brings up an interesting point about Darizen that I've started to notice. He really seems to hate how much confidence Nodoka has built over the course of this series, and I think I know why. Even before he remembered Nodoka was his original courier, Darizen was clearly getting some sick enjoyment out of seeing her suffer. This might have been him subconsciously remembering his time with Nodoka and how faces like this were what he saw on a daily basis. This isn't a case of a boy just teasing a girl he likes. Oh no. It's about him making her suffer just so that he can remember the good times. Shonen protagonists wish they could have rivalries like this. Also, yeah, while the animation in the first half of this fight was okay, it's clear they saved the best animation done by veteran Joy Calagian for this part. Good call. And in an interesting change of pace, 2 fights were going on at the same time with Nodoka vs Darizen and the remaining Cures dealing with Dr. Gigas. Again, just great to see this team displaying a proper power and ability balance, even using their respective elemental models in unique ways. Bonus points to Hinata for knowing to use Thunder Wave first. Nodoka managed to repel Darizen, and they finished it off with the Den Common Arrows. With that, the episode ended with Hachisuka thankfully not having a Doctor Strange-esque accident, and Nodoka reaffirming her team's goals. Yeah, this was a good episode. I mean, the stuff between Nodoka and her doctor could have used just a little more drama, but it was still perfectly serviceable. However, the real draw is what has become legitimately one of the best anime rivalries of the year, Nodoka vs Darizen. I don't know, maybe I'm just a drama addict, but I do kind of think the talk between Nodoka and the doc could have been done just a little better. Maybe if they had restructured it a little and had him reveal his new job at the end of the conversation rather than at the beginning, it could have built towards a nice emotional reveal. Now, that's just my thoughts because it was still a nice scene that's not only really comforting to see in these times, I wouldn't be surprised if they added in a few lines to reflect this. It also reaffirmed Nodoka as just an amazingly amiable protagonist. Though inversely, it's also nice to see her butt heads with the source of all of her and her doctor's suffering. I think this might very well be the greatest rivalry in the whole franchise, if only because it is the most personal. And if watching wrestling has taught me anything, it's always the most personal rivalries that get the biggest reactions out of me. One fights to end needless suffering, while the other fights to just see her suffer. And as nice as Nodoka is, I don't think satisfying this dude's needs is anywhere on her priorities list. The fact that she has now seen a man quit his job and likely burn through her parents' savings has given her all the reason in the world to defeat him. And I, for one, am looking forward to watch these two really go at it. If you haven't seen it yet, I actually managed to get part 1 of my Symphogear Axis review up like I promised on Thursday. Man, I'm getting good at this. Part of that might have been because I've been really enjoying covering this insanely over-the-top series that even managed to slip in some good character moments amongst all the chaos. In fact, by the time I'm done with part 2, I think I might have some new material that I could use in a certain upcoming Pink Lead analysis video. Look forward to all of that, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and always remember to pay for your health insurance. No matter the cost.